Hey, you're out in the garage with TheEZGZ. I am pleased as can be. I am very tired, but we've got the 2110 apart, and oh, stop it. Okay, this is, you can see it's stamped right in here, old school. This engine was bought and assembled in the 90s by me. I had to clearance the camshaft myself. It was my first stroker build, and you can see where things start getting closer and you start having to cut things. And on this particular build, you can see where I notched the cam lobe, but it seems to have no ill effects. This camshaft looks as good as the FK7 that I took out of the other engine. It even, I can't hear it. I can feel it, but I can't hear the back and forth click. And this, for most of its life, had double springs. It had those 044 Magnums until 2016, and then I put these newer heads on them, and I showed you in that last video. They're just, you know, gorgeous heads, but I don't know if I want to go in that direction. Now, I had lowered my compression way down. I had put these where did I put them? These 100,000ths shims, which used to be on my 1776. This one had the 26 millimeter Berg pump with the O-ring, and it looks like it kind of got boogered when I took it out or during operation or something. But oil pressure was always okay. Look at these lifters. I took these two out, and the faces rock back and forth, so there's virtually no wear. In that last set of lifters in the other engine, you saw these blue heat marks and so forth, and I don't know whose lifters these are. I imagine they're scat lifters from back in the day, and they have served me well. Looks like there's a little crud down in there. And that looks kind of like a soft seat. I had chromoly push rods, like I said, double springs. The cam bearings look gorgeous. I mean, I'm going to put this engine back together. I think I killed the power on this engine by lowering the compression with those big valve heads and the spacer. Those were 62cc, the other ones were 55, but you can see the lifter faces underneath there, and you can see, I hope, everything looks just gorgeous. These are the H-beam rods. I believe these were from CB Performance, and I used ARP bolts. And these are the short rods. So you can see the distributor gear looks nice, just like that other one. The center main bearing looks nice. You can see where they cut the case for clearancing. I bought this case brand new and had a clearance for a stroker crank. It was the CB Performance Super Case. You can see where they do all this grinding in here, and you need it even with the H-beam rods. That comes very close. You don't have to do additional. It was good to go as I got it, but I'm just so pleased to see how great a condition this thing is in. And it's just sort of sad because with this setup that I've got here, I could easily make 140 horsepower or so. All I'd have to do is keep the compression up, put an FK8 cam in there or something like that. But that's just not where I want to be. When you have those types of engines, I want something that I can jump in and drive anytime, anywhere, across country, to the grocery store. When you build a high horsepower engine, you'll find that it sits around a lot because just those little short hops is not good for a big stroker high horsepower motor. You need to warm them up, you need to run them, you need to exercise them. And man, this thing, I guess I just didn't thrash it hard enough. This spent years out on the sand. I had the extra oil sump, the 1.5 quart oil sump underneath here, and I'm just tickled to death. The center cam bearing on that other engine was a little chewed up. The camshaft looked okay. But this thing looks fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and measure that up. So look at that bearing. That's just like the day it was put in. There was virtually no thrust, and there's no thrust, zero thrust in this main bearing. You know, a lot of times these things gets pounded out. Let's look at some of the main bearings over here. I can't feel any type of a ridge. You can see it, but there's no pounding out of the case. Everything was straight and true, and I ran aviation fuel. I had 9.6 to 1 compression until 2016. See, that was the other thing. I built this thing as a dune buggy motor, and when I took it to the sand dunes, those guys in the 2276s kicked my butt. I thought, you know, I told you the story many times how I didn't know if I could afford to stay into the sand cars and stuff, and I'd lost my job, sold all my stuff, and then as fate would have it, I didn't have to go look for another job. I did have to take a cut in pay, but I was able to stay with the same company and got my old position back with my old pay, and I just I built another car, and I built this engine for it because it was so shocking. The other one had a 2-liter in it that I had bought. It came in my Carmen Ghia, and so I bought this one in the 90s, and this was my first stroker motor to put together, and it I guess I did I was so worried and I was so careful about everything as I was building it, but it seems to have paid off. And I wasn't particularly diligent about the zinc and the oil. Back in the 90s there, I was running that 1540 diesel oil, but you can't do that anymore because since they came out with the catalytic converters, they've changed the ingredients, and it's really not a gasoline engine oil anymore. But it certainly, I got lucky. Since 2016, I guess when I changed the heads and lowered the compression, because see, there you go. I wanted to be able to run it on pump gas. I was worried at 9.6 to 1 compression. I just didn't trust the pump gas, and I didn't want to destroy this engine. It cost me a lot of money to build this thing, and so I lowered the compression, but I lowered it too far. I had turbo in mind, and so I sort of talked myself in and out of that several times, but now I'm going to have to really clean this thing. Really did a good clean job here, and then decide what I'm going to do on the camshaft. I've been studying the camshaft specs, and you know, I could put a that FK7. I just don't think I'll be happy with it, even with the extra stroke. That 288 duration, although I don't have to run it, you know, I could run it with the 125s or even the 1.11s. There's a lot of options to do. I plan on keeping the compression. This one's going to go back together the way it looks at about 8.7 to 1 compression. And I'm just really shocked at how those lifter faces look. Man, they don't have that blue tint to them like the other engine did. Where did I put those? Yeah, look at these. See, these are, well, I guess it depends on how the light's reflecting on them. But these are over 20 years old. This FK7 is only since 2016. Man, and I don't know if you noticed it or not, but I think I already mentioned it, how I had to chop the corner off that cam lobe. Look how I had to hack this corner off. I probably overdid it, but yeah, I was going to hit the counterweight, so I cut that off, and it's all these years, and I thought it was the end one, but it was the middle one. And you don't see any scarring, anything different or unusual on these lifters. And I put the two faces together, and there's still a dome there. It's still rock, so there's nothing the matter with these. And the lifter bores feel nice and tight. There's no play. Yeah, I'm tickled to death. So I wanted to share that with you and let you see. This was a expensive crank back in the 90s. I paid $700 for it. But you can see the oil hole. It was nitrated and radiused. And I know these connecting rods, I got them from CB. They were like $400 plus additional for the ARP bolts. Yeah, I spent some coin on this baby, that's for sure. But I think if I up the compression again, I have to decide. I'm gonna have to sleep on it, decide what I'm gonna do for the cam, because this C35 cam, it's like the Engel 110. It's slightly milder, which I even like more. I remember when I first built it, and I was using the double springs, and the springs and heads were fresh. I could tack this thing up to $6 grand. I didn't do it real often, but we have a little event here in town in Colorado, the Bug-In, once a summer, and I remember, you know, I finally let my son drive it because I couldn't drive it hard enough, and it was bracket racing anyhow, so what difference does it make, right? So anyhow, it was a lot of fun, and this I had the 48s on it when I used to do that. It would go $6 grand, and I had these 48 Delordos on it, and it pulled pretty darn hard, let me tell you. And of course, when it was in my sand car, I had a close ratio transmission, so we weren't working them real hard. We were kind of lugging them around the sand, because with a close ratio and a big stroke, you can kind of do that. And I'm just looking at drivability, and I hate to be kind of like trapped to the dual carbs, but that might be the way to go. I don't think that C25 would be a good choice on an engine with this much displacement. There's really not a cam in there. Now my 2-liter, see, this is what makes me think that 2280 might work, because my 2-liter has some kind of a cheater cam in it. I should pull the valve cover and measure that. Maybe I'll do that tomorrow. It's too hot. I'm tired. I've been cleaning parts, and I got a lot more cleaning to do. But I wanted to show you guys this and give you a peek at it, and so that, you know, the point I want to make with this, I'm not showing off and I'm not bragging. What I'm trying to make a point is, if you spend the money and buy quality parts, new case, new crank, new connecting rods, this has the forged pistons in it. If you do everything with quality parts and drive it sensibly and run the right quality fuel in it, it will last you. That's the point. Now, like I said, I was running avgas on the dunes, and I didn't run this on the street a whole lot. I I was able to get some good gas when I lived in Grand Junction, Colorado, for a while, and there was an airport right there, and I put it in my Carmen Ghia and played around with it for a while, and enjoyed it then. But still, it was like I was afraid with the high compression to run it on pump gas, and I sure didn't want to take it on any long trips. And what I want is to build a motor that my son will inherit, and it will give him a lot of pleasure for a long period of time, and it won't be high maintenance. So the thing that's cool about that FK7 is we know we were just running on the 1.11 ratio rockers, and it had plenty of power. But I know when I was on my trip, I was in and out of the cam. I kept coming up to that 2500. It was hard to stay at 2500 or above, and that's where the power was just starting to come in. The power was actually, you know, but I couldn't, you know, I ran it at 3000 for a long time, but it yeah, I'm repeating myself, so you get the drift. And I'm going to fix myself some dinner, and hopefully it'll cool off tonight. It's supposed to be another hot one tomorrow. You guys probably, you know, you laugh. It's a dry heat in Colorado. You guys don't know what heat is unless you got 100% humidity. I can't imagine what that's like. But I'm going to sleep good tonight. I'm going to put this thing in a nice blanket to keep the dust out, and maybe a trash bag. How about that? I think that's a better idea, don't you? A trash bag. I think that'd be better. Plastic. Don't want to get lint in there. So I'm going to cover it up and tuck it in and have myself a bite to eat. So I hope you got something out of that, and you go further ahead with your plans. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subbing. Easy Jeezy.